Okay, so I'm starting to build a river epoxy table, and so we kind of started already. So what we have here is we have our two pieces of wood that we started to cut. We cut them into half so they can be on the outside of the mold. And this is the mold we're starting to build it. So we have a melamine bottom. We're covering it up with tape just to be safe. Cut out all the edges, and then we'll put it together at the end. So we finished the mold. We put all the caulking around the edges and the inside, the outside, and where the wood is supposed to end so it doesn't seep underneath the table. Now we're gonna place the pieces of wood and press them down and let the caulking dry. So we finished putting down the mold. We have everything clamped down. I don't have too many clamps, but enough to put it all down. I put caulking all around the top of it just in case it overflows. Put pieces across to clamp them down so the bottom would be flush to the tape. Now we're gonna let it dry for about a day, and tomorrow we'll start pouring. So we're starting to pour the mixed epoxy. This is the epoxy that I'm using, the EcoPoxy, slow cast. This is gonna be about 12 liters this pour. It's a 2-to-1 mix, 2 part A, 1 part B. And we have the mixing stick. We have some buckets. We're gonna start mixing. We pour, this first pour is 3 liters. We put some blue pigment in it. Put 1 spoon of pigment, or 1 tablespoon, something about this size, in it. Now we're gonna mix it for about 5 minutes. Let all the hardener and the resin mix properly. And then I'll show you what happens when I start pouring. Okay, so here we are pouring the first bucket. And you can see it's starting to slide to all the different edges. Okay, now we're mixing the second bucket, giving it a little stir before we add the pigment. But soon we'll add the color, and then I'll show you it again. Now you can see how it's mixing, very liquidy, almost like water. You want to make sure you get all the edges, just in case. I don't know what these pieces are flying, but all these pieces, all the edges, so everything mixes thoroughly so you don't have soft spots once it cures. Okay, so we mixed the second batch. We got another 3 liters. As you can see, there are almost no bubbles. There are no bubbles in the first layer. Now we're adding the second layer. We're about halfway through the board. And now we're gonna do our third out of the 4 buckets that we have left. We're mixing each bucket for about 5 minutes, as recommended from on the label. And that's it. As you can see, there's a ton of bubbles that are forming on the edges. And if you hit the edge of the bucket, you can see they'll form, more will come up. So what you want to do is take this heat gun. We're using a heat gun. You can use a torch apparently, but we haven't tried it yet. And if you turn it on, you go, and you see they all go away. So if you let the bucket rest for a little bit, most of the bubbles should come up. and you can just pop them before you start pouring it. Okay, so this is our fourth and last batch. We're gonna pour this a little slower just so we don't overflow. We shouldn't. We measured it just, should be exact or a smidge under, but just in case,
Running out of
slowly. As you can see, this is the whole thing. Just poured the very last of it, and it is perfectly to the top. You see it's flush to the top. You can see perfectly. So this is the table after a little over 24 hours. As you can see, the patterns are looking very, very nice. Very nice swirls happening. It's basically all hardened up even after 24 hours, which I didn't expect. I think what happened is this is pretty deep pour for it, so it hardened a little faster. We got a few bubbles going along the board, but besides that, very clean, looks great. I don't think nothing seeped to the ground. It's looking very pretty. So maybe in another day or two I will take it out of its out of its mold and start sanding it down. Okay, so it's been 3 days. I'm gonna start taking this mold apart. Okay, so unfortunately we put in like 100 screws for each side, so this is going to take me a little while. Okay, so I took off all the edges. This is what I've been waiting for 3 days, is to see the other side, so let's see. Okay, so I took the board out of the mold and I started sanding it down. As you can see, we're starting to look pretty good. Not quite the shine I'm hoping for, but not done yet. So I started with a 60 grit because we had quite a little bit of epoxy pour from the sides to get it down. Then worked my way up to 80 grit, 120, 150, and I'm halfway done with the 220. I'm still debating to see how high I want to go. Either 400 or 1,000 is probably the grid I'm gonna go to. But it's starting to look very nice. Colors are starting to pop. Stay tuned till the end. I just finished sanding everything down and cutting it to shape. As you can see, it's very pretty. You can see a little bit through it, not too much, only in sunlight. So I sanded it down all the way up to 2,000 grit just to make sure, so it's extra smooth. I got all the little scratches, that's just dirt, all the little scratches out of it. And now I'm gonna treat it with some wood oil to make the epoxy kind of pop and bring the color back to the piece of of the cherry, the red cherry. I'm gonna do both sides of it just to have the wood completely sealed. So now we're buffering the oil that we got. As you can see, starting to look very shiny. See, you still have some buff marks, but most of them are going away. So the table is done. Finished buffing it with the oil. Now it just needs to dry a little bit. But this is it. This is the final project. Epoxy is nice and nice shape. And that's it.